I'm Elizabeth, a literary princess. If you are new here, welcome. I'm a 6-year PhD candidate in English literature with a focus on Victorian women novelists. And as you might expect, I love to read. Today I have my best books of 2024 for you. So I have a list of 10 new to me books that I read. My usual spiel is that it's one per author and series count as one, but that actually wasn't a problem this year. I had so many 5-star reads this year. It was hard to narrow down which were really my top 10, but I did not read like a ton by the same author, and there were no series that made it in here, so. I am also going to give you my top 5 rereads of the year as kind of honorable mentions. And those I do allow myself to have multiple by the same author. But again, still no series. Like, did I even read any series this year? I don't know if I did. So, let's jump in, starting with the rereads. So, in the slot of number 5, best reread, we have one that is actually rated a 4.5 star for me. And even though there were a few other rereads I had that were 5 stars, I felt that this had to be here because I had such a drastic change in opinion of it. And this is Middlemarch by George Eliot. This is my nemesis. I did not get on with this the first time I read it. I liked aspects of it and then was like, it's too long, it's too meandering. Some people in it really pissed me off and George Eliot needs to chill. However, upon rereading it, I really, really enjoyed it. It's still meandering, like the plotting is not the best. George Eliot, it's not her strong suit, it never has been. But I had much less of a problem with it this time, and I just really loved this story. I think there's a good chance that upon a reread this, or upon a third read, I don't know, this might end up being 5 stars, but it will never have my heart as my favorite George Eliot novel, which we'll be talking about in a minute. Coming in at number 4 is another one that my opinion drastically changed on, and this is Sleepwalking by Meg Wolitzer. When I first read this years ago, I gave it, I think, a 3-star because I was expecting a campus novel. That's what it was kind of marketed as to me. But this is not a campus novel. This is a novel about grief. And it was absolutely beautiful. Upon rereading it, I fell in love with it. And I think this reread probably cemented Meg Wolitzer as one of my favorite authors. Back when I have a video of who are my favorite authors, and I talked about her as someone who I've really liked all of her books, but I don't know if I can call her a favorite, and I think this one has cemented her as one of my favorite authors. Like, it earned her spot there. Coming in at number 3, we have more George Eliot. This is Daniel Deronda, my absolute favorite by her ever. I love this book. I love it so much. Yeah, I don't know. I have a whole video on it if you want to watch it. It does have spoilers, but if you want to hear me wax poetic about how much I love Daniel Deronda, it's there. Gwendolyn Harleth is one of my favorite characters in fiction. She's great. She's just so well drawn. Coming in at number 2, we have Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. Probably my second favorite Jane Austen after Persuasion. And I hadn't read this since I was 17. I couldn't believe it. But I was like, yeah, no, I've not read this since I was 17. So I had a wonderful time rereading it. Again, I've got a whole video on it if you want to hear my thoughts on rereading this as an adult. Hadn't read it in, over a decade. But yeah, it truly is one of my favorite books ever, and I just love Jane Austen. She is one of my favorite authors as well. And then finally, what could possibly beat Pride and Prejudice except for The Secret History by Donna Tartt? This is one of my all-time favorite books ever. Donna Tartt is one of my favorite authors, and I just had a wonderful time rereading this. I always do. I've reread it multiple times now, and I just always get something new. I always enjoy going back to it. I love this story. I love these characters. It never gets old. That is it for the rereads. Let's get into the top 10 new to me books. And sitting at number 10 is Fairy Tale by Stephen King. I don't read a lot of King's newer stuff. I've mostly read like classic King, but when this came out, I was like, I need it because it is King's take on a portal fantasy. And it did not disappoint. I loved it. Really, at its heart, this is a story about a boy and his dog. And that's the way to win my heart. Boy and his dog plus portal fantasy, plus it's written by Stephen King, one of my favorite authors. Yeah. I loved it. So the fact that this is number 10, I mean, holy crap, that means there's a lot of good stuff. I feel like it was an unprecedented amount of 5-star reads this year, but I'm not actually sure. We'll talk about that in my stats video, which will be coming up next week, probably, from when this is being posted. But yeah, oh, so good. Number 9 was my first read of the year, and this is Emily Wilde's Map of the Otherlands by Heather Fawcett. This is the second book in the Emily Wilde series, following scholar of fairies Emily Wilde and her academic rival / love interest, whose name I'm not remembering right now, but it's a great name. Wendell Bambleby. Great name. I loved being back with these two, and I'm so excited for the third book, which is coming out in February. It was just a delight, an absolute delight. And at number 8 is one that I literally just finished. This is The Way We Live Now by Anthony Trollope. This is a masterpiece as far as I'm concerned. The way that he takes all of these characters and weaves them all together, I think he does it incredibly well. Like, a lot of Victorian authors try to do that, and I think in this book Trollope managed to do it better than a lot of others. I mean, there's so many subplots. Like, what is this book about? It's about a lot of different people and kind of the way that England is shifting in regards to social class, in regards to wealth, and in regards to like just etiquette and what's acceptable and not acceptable. There are so many great characters in here. Mrs. Hurtle is my personal favorite, although Marie Melmont also is high up there. And the whole story kind of centers around Augustus Melmont, the father of Marie, who is a very rich man who may or may not have got it through disreputable means. So this is just so good. I'm so glad that I finally picked it up. Number 7 is Wylding Hall by Elizabeth Hand. This is a horror novella about a band in the 70s going to stay at the Wylding Hall of the title to write their new album, and creepy stuff is happening. Creepy stuff. I love the way that this is told. It is like snippets of interviews from the different characters looking back. Like, it's almost like it's a documentary. And I just loved how that was set up. I thought this was so creepy. And I enjoyed this so much. Very short. Very short. It's a weird one. If you like something that explains what's going on at the end, this isn't for you. But it was the book for me. Coming in at number 6 is another one from very early on in the year. This is Cecilia by Frances Burney. It's huge. I loved this. Might have been my first 5-star classic of the year. I can't remember. I think it is. I read it for Feb Regency, and I'm so glad that I did. It's ginormous, but it did not read as being ginormous to me. Like, it moved along really well. I enjoyed all of Cecilia's misfortunes and adventures. She's a bit of a frustrating character sometimes, but I just enjoyed what was going on around her so much, and the way that Bernie writes, that my annoyance like barely even registered half the time. It was just so good, and so interesting to read Bernie as a precursor to Jane Austen, and then as a precursor to various Victorian writers. So that's always really fun for me to see. Coming in at number 5 is The Trouble with Mrs. Montgomery Hurst by Katie Lumsden of Books and Things. This was one of my most anticipated releases. I pre-ordered it from Blackwell's because it wasn't published in the US. This is amazing. It is the story of a county in England during the early Victorian period, and it's really a story about gossip and how gossip can have major effects. I enjoyed seeing the various influences so much. Like, you can see influences from Jane Austen, from Anthony Trollope, from Elizabeth Gaskell. I thought that this bore a lot of resemblance to Deerbrook by Harriet Martineau, another 5-star read from me that only didn't get on this list by like that much, but also a story concerned with gossip and its effects. There is a big cast of characters here. Felicia Elton, I loved. I can't remember people's names because, you know, I don't do that. Amelia Ashpoint, I loved seeing her story. It was just, it was a delight. It was truly, truly a delight to read. And I can't wait to see what Katie does next, because The Secrets of Heartwood Hall made my top books list last year. And now Mrs. Montgomery Hurst is on this year. Like, oh God, what's gonna come next? Coming in at number 4 is some nonfiction, Sister Novelists. The trailblazing Porter sisters who paved the way for Austen and the Brontes by Devani Looser. This is a remarkable work of nonfiction. I knew nothing about Jane and Anna Maria. Yes. I know people's names sometimes. Jane and Anna Maria Porter. I knew nothing about them. They are Regency authors. Like, knew nothing about him. Never heard of them until I was recommended this book. But they are brought to life by Looser. Oh my goodness. She does such a good job. This is actually one of 2 nonfiction works on here. I read a surprising amount of good nonfiction this year. Like, I don't think nonfiction makes it onto my list very frequently. So to have 2 of them as high up as they are truly spectacular. I want to reread this. Like, I just finished it in February. I already want to reread it. And I do want to read some stuff by the Porters now. Have to make some time to do that. Coming in at number 3 is my favorite classic of the year, and this is No Name by Wilkie Collins. I read this for Victober, and as with all Wilkie Collins books, I adored it. This is the story of 2 sisters who find out they have been disinherited because their parents were not married when they were born. And I got another favorite character in here, Magdalene Vanstone. She is out for revenge. She wants that money. She's like, this is our money, we deserve it, and she will get it no matter the cost. I had so much fun with this. There are some great characters in here. It's exciting, it's twisty and turny, and just fantastic. Wilkie Collins, you've done it again. I can't wait to read another by him. He's so, so good. Now we come to the penultimate book. Sitting at number 2 is The Goblin Emperor by Catherine Addison. Like, this is a fantasy novel about a half-goblin, half-elf named Maya who is unexpectedly thrown into the role as emperor when his father and brothers all die. And I loved this. This is some of the best world building that I've encountered since Lord of the Rings. Yeah. Yeah. That's how good I think this is. Not quite at Tolkien's level, because I don't think anybody's at Tolkien's level, Mr. I'm gonna make up multiple languages and whole history books about my world. But for books that I've read, I would say she's second place for world building. I just loved this. I loved Maya as a main character. I loved seeing his journey to learn what he is supposed to be doing as emperor. I enjoyed the relationships between him and all the different characters. It's just so good. And I cannot wait to return to this world with The Witness for the Dead, which is not like a sequel, but it's set in the same world and is following a character that we meet here. Oh, it's just so good. All right, number 1, and if you've been watching my channel this year, this is not going to come as a surprise because I have waxed poetic about it quite a lot. This is Red Comet, The Short Life and Blazing Art of Sylvia Plath by Heather Clark. It's obviously a biography of Sylvia Plath. It's ginormous. I brought this on a plane with me. That might have been a mistake, but I enjoyed reading it on the plane a lot and got through several hundred pages. This is amazing. This is an amazing biography. Incredibly detailed. Just brings Plath to life. It's heartbreaking. Clark has very insightful readings of all of the poems. It's just a masterpiece. I want to reread this now too. So I was in my second Plath era starting in 2024. It's continuing into 2025. And this is kind of the book that kicked it off, to be honest. I mean, I suppose what kicked it off was reading Ariel in 2023, but this book really, really put it in hyperdrive. And I just loved it so, so much. And I think it is like almost a perfect piece of nonfiction. It was a finalist for the Pulitzer, I think. Yeah, Pulitzer Prize finalist. I'm like, what beat it? I should look that up. I'm like, it better be really good. So yes, Red Comet is my top book of the year. Phenomenal. Highly recommend it. I highly recommend all of these. But if you like biographies and you like Sylvia Plath and you're not intimidated by Giant, definitely pick this up. It's so worth it. So those are my best books of 2024. Let me know down in the comments below. Have you read any of these? What did you think of them? What are your top books of 2024? If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to see more of my bookish content. It has been great chatting with you. I will see you soon. Bye.